Poverty and economic inequality. What does it really mean to be poor in America? Is poverty simply about income, or is there more to the story? And why do some people believe that the gap between the richest and the poorest continues to grow? How much inequality is too much? How do we even measure poverty? And can the government help the poor without accidentally discouraging work? These questions have sparked debates among economists, lawmakers, and everyday citizens for decades. These questions raise important economic questions that affect government policy, taxes, wages, and opportunities. In this video, we'll explore how economists define poverty, why escaping poverty can sometimes be surprisingly difficult, how government assistance programs work, and how economists measure income inequality. We'll look at how the poverty line is drawn, why some anti-poverty programs backfire, how economists measure inequality, and what tools government has to address it. By the end, you'll have a clearer understanding of one of the most discussed and often misunderstood topics in economics. Let's get started. Background and context. First, let's get one thing straight. Poverty and income inequality are not the same thing. Poverty measures how many people fall below a set income level, the poverty line, that defines what it takes to afford a basic standard of living. Income inequality is about how income is divided across society. It compares the share going to those at the top with the share going to everyone else. You can have falling poverty and rising inequality at the same time. If everyone's income doubles, poverty drops, but the gap between rich and poor actually widens. So where did the US poverty line come from? Back in 1963, a government researcher named Molly Orshansky had a practical idea. She knew the average family spent about 1/3 of its income on food. So she calculated the cost of a nutritionally adequate diet for a family, multiplied it by 3, and called that the poverty line. We still use her basic method today, adjusted for inflation. In 2021, the line ranged from about $12,880 for a single person to $26,500 for a family of 4. Here's the sobering part. In 2020, 37.2 million Americans, 11.4% of the population, lived below that line. Picture a single mother with 2 children trying to cover rent, healthcare, clothing, and transportation on roughly $18,000 a year. After the bills, her food budget might work out to about $17 a day for the whole family. In most cities, $17 barely buys one appetizer at a restaurant. Poverty doesn't hit all groups equally. Rates are higher for children, for Black and Hispanic Americans, and for female-headed households. Still, because of population size, most Americans living in poverty are white. Main points. Now let's dig into 3 big ideas: the poverty trap, the safety net, and how we measure inequality. First, the poverty trap. Here's a question. Can you give people too much help or the wrong kind of help? Imagine a program that guarantees a family $18,000 a year, but takes away $1 of benefits for every dollar earned. Sounds reasonable until you do the math. A single mother earning $8 an hour could work 2,000 hours a year, a full-time job, and still end up with exactly $18,000, the same amount she'd get by not working at all. Why give up 40 hours a week with her kids for 0 net gain? That's the poverty trap. When benefits phase out dollar for dollar, working brings little or no reward. And the trap is even worse in real life because working costs money: childcare, transportation, work clothes. The fix? Phase benefits out slowly. If the government only reduces benefits by 50 cents per dollar earned, every hour of work still puts money in your pocket. Work requirements and time limits can also soften the trap, though slower phase-outs cost taxpayers more. Second, the safety net. This is the collection of government programs supporting people at or near the poverty line. 4 deserve special attention. TANF, temporary assistance for needy families, replaced the old welfare system in 1996. States get fixed federal grants, but recipients must work or attend school, and there's a 5-year lifetime limit. Caseloads dropped nearly 80%, from 4.8 million families in 1995 to about 1 million by 2020. The Earned Income Tax Credit, or EITC, rewards work through the tax system. The more a low-income person earns, up to a point, the bigger the credit. It phases out gradually to avoid the poverty trap, and it now costs around $60 billion a year, reaching 25 million workers and families. SNAP, often called food stamps, provides a monthly debit-style card for buying food. In 2021, about 41.5 million people received benefits averaging $287 per person per month. Medicaid, created in 1965, provides health insurance for low-income families, the elderly, and people with disabilities. Interesting fact, children make up almost half of enrollment, but receive only about 1/5 of spending. Most Medicaid dollars go to seniors and people with disabilities. Third, measuring inequality. Economists rank all households by income and split them into 5 equal groups called quintiles. In 2020, the bottom fifth of American households received just 3% of all income. The top fifth received 52%, more than half, and that gap has been growing. In 1980, the top fifth received about 44%. We can also picture this with a Lorenz curve, a graph showing the cumulative share of income against the cumulative share of population. Perfect equality would be a straight 45-degree line. The bottom 20% earns 20% of income, and so on. The farther the actual curve sags below that line, the more unequal the distribution. The US curve for 2020 sits noticeably farther from the line than the curve for 1980. Application and deeper example. So why has inequality grown? Economists point to 2 main forces. The first is the changing American household. In 1970, 41% of married women were in the labor force. By 2019, it was nearly 59%. Meanwhile, single-parent households have also grown. About 23% of US families were headed by single mothers in 2021, and those families face high poverty rates. So we have more 2-income households clustered at the top and more single-parent households near the bottom. These shifts explain roughly half of the rise in inequality. The second force is what economists call winner-take-all labor markets. Technology and globalization have driven up demand for high-skilled workers, top managers, consultants, tech professionals, faster than the supply has grown, even though the number of college degrees awarded jumped from 840,000 in 1970 to 2 million by 2019. The result? In 2020, young workers with college degrees earned about 1.85 times what high school graduates earned, up from 1.59 times in 1995. Basic supply and demand tells the story. When demand rises faster than supply, the price of skilled labor climbs. What can government do about it? 3 main tools. Redistribution, taxing higher earners at higher rates, our progressive income tax, and funding programs like TANF, EITC, SNAP, and Medicaid. The ladder of opportunity, investing in things like quality schools, preschool enrichment, college loans and grants, job retraining, and anti-discrimination laws, so a child's economic future isn't decided by their zip code. And inheritance taxes, the estate tax, though in 2022 it only applied to estates over $12 million. But there's a trade-off. Push too hard for equality, very high taxes, generous no-strings benefits, and you weaken incentives to work and produce. Push too little, and you may erode public support for markets altogether. The good news? Some policies, like public education, can increase both equality and output. Countries like the US, Canada, Japan, and much of Europe have similar income levels, but different inequality levels, which suggests there's real room for choice. Conclusion and key takeaways. Let's pull the key points together. Poverty and income inequality are related, but they are not the same thing. Poverty counts people below a fixed income line. Inequality describes how income is shared across society. The US poverty line, based on Molly Orshansky's food budget method, has left the poverty rate above 10.5% in every year for 6 decades. The poverty trap happens when benefits vanish as fast as earnings rise. So smart programs phase out slowly, like the EITC. The safety net, TANF, EITC, SNAP, Medicaid, and others, protects millions, but each program involves careful design choices. Inequality has grown since 1980, driven by changing household structures and rising rewards for high-skilled labor. Government can respond through redistribution, the ladder of opportunity, and estate taxes, but must balance equality against work incentives. Understanding these concepts helps us move beyond headlines and political debates. Instead, we can evaluate poverty, inequality, and public policy using economic reasoning, evidence, and careful analysis. Economics can show us the trade-offs, and it reminds us that well-designed policies, especially education and training, can make society more equal and more productive at the same time. That's a goal worth understanding. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.